Welcome back to Finance Mandarin China Insights. Dr. Yan Li, thanks for your time again today. We've already spoken about the different cultures, the differences between China and Western culture, and also the different business customs in China. And today we'd like to talk a little bit more about the management styles. How does that actually affect? Dr. Yan, could you share a little bit about the different management styles between China and the West?
It's a big topic, but in general, you can look at it this way. The Western style, which is what people learn in business schools and all food practices, is to isolate a problem at a fundamental level. Whether you generate an idea for a new business, a new product, whatever, but it starts from the bottom. It bottoms up type of thing. And then you bring it up. And the upper level would be the regulatory environment, the financing, the marketing, all that stuff. But you start from the fundamental business issue, whether it's a product idea or it's a way to improve something, and you all start from there, and then you work yourself up. Okay. Now that's the Western way of doing things, so we learn in business school. The Chinese way is a little bit different. It's actually top-down. It's top-down for many reasons. One of it because the people and the country has lived in this very group type of idea and structure for many centuries. So the idea usually comes from the top. Now, it doesn't mean that Chinese leaders are autocrats. And that's not true. That's what most Western people think. Chinese leaders are autocrats and they dictate and people follow. That's not true. They have their own way of generating ideas and driving for consensus. And so a typical situation would be like this. And as the issue happens, and the Chinese side will form a team to study it. And the team could come from consists of many different members from different parts of the company, or maybe outside the company. And they work together to debate all the issues of election. So this process is very laborious. It could take many meetings for this to happen. And I myself experienced some of that. And I know how deliberate they are to drive for consensus. And the person in charge is usually doesn't say much. He's the one to arrange the meetings to make sure people air their opinions thoroughly, and then he would direct them to kind of flesh things out. At the end, through hard working and the driving for consensus together, and they arrive at something, and the headman will approve it. And maybe he has some input in it, maybe he doesn't. Usually he doesn't. So that becomes, the headman then becomes a spokesman for this idea. So that's how the Chinese management style works. And then it filtered down to the organization and people generally follow. Now if you read the proclamations from China, it looks remarkably the same, because they all start with history. We've gone through this financial, the whole reform and opening, we do this kind of restructuring, now we're at this stage, we gotta do this and do that to further reopen the economy. So that's the consumed about 80% of the document. And then for individual cases, then they will talk about why we have to go with this project, what are the pros and cons of this project, and then they will describe that briefly. So this is Chinese style. It's a very top-down and very macro-based and not very detail-oriented focus.
The key word you mentioned there I want to catch was consensus-driven. Mm-hmm. That's one of the most important factors.
Absolutely. And that's because the culture of the group and all that from historical basis. Consensus is very important for them. Now they would do a lot to drive consensus. Even if you don't agree, they'll find out what happened, what can make you agree. Can your ideas be adopted here in this general idea, and make it into a bigger idea that everybody can agree with. So that's a very important Chinese process. And we don't see it as Western businessmen. They do that closed doors. But when we meet with them and they come back with a result, and that's because they have already done that kind of work.
Whereas the Western management style is quite different.
Mm-hmm. The Western style is quite different. Everything's in the open. If you open, you talk about this issue, that issues, and you want to debate the merits of this, pros and cons of that, on a very micro basis. And then your senior management doesn't interfere too much. It doesn't really want to drive consensus. You want different business people, to duke it out. It depends on who wins this contest, and that's the solution you'll pick. He doesn't need to have you agree with the other guys.
Can I catch one word you said, they duke it out?
Yes.
What? Just expand on that a little bit, could you?
Well, the Western managers, they generally don't have, they're managers, so they're not leaders. The Chinese are leaders, they lead the process. The Westerners are managers, they manage the resources, the assets of the people, the ideas, the manager. And so they allow different ideas to fight it out in organizations sometimes. And the better ideas will win sometimes.
So it's a win-lose. It's like a boxing match, win or lose. One win, one lose.
Yeah, that's a traditional Western way of resolving conflicts, is to have a winner and a loser. The Chinese, very differently, is to not have winning or losing, but one to have win-win situations with everybody. So that's internal Chinese management. But then when you leave the company and face, say, the business counterpart, they also want to have win-win solutions. What's good for you and good for me, let's work this out, and so that we can both be happy. And you can see that in the approach China takes to the trade war, the initiated by U.S. government. And the U.S. government thinks that we can have this win-lose situation. We are economically stronger. We are having a stronger stock market. People are getting employed, so we are economically stronger. We can put the pressure on China, and China would have to cater to our demands. But Chinese don't think that way. They think in terms of win-win. Well, how can we work with you, satisfy your demands, same time we'll satisfy our people? So it's a different style altogether. So for Western businessmen working in China, they have to think that way. How can I make you happy at the same time make me happy? You have to find what is it that make them happy.
I've read in your book where you use the analogy of Western management and leadership style is like a boxing match,
yes,
whereas the Chinese management and leadership style is more like Tai Chi. Could you explain a little bit?
Yeah, well, the boxing came around long time ago from the Greeks to be declared a winner or loser. So the concept of winning and losing is very clear. The fellow that falls on the ground is a loser. The guy that stands is a winner. In the art of Tai Chi, which is the traditional form of Chinese martial arts, there's not really a win and lose situation. And there's a form that involves two persons called push hands. But this exercise has a lot of meaning to it because both sides have to maintain a balance. So even when you attack someone, you have to maintain a balance. Otherwise, your opponent will notice you and they pull you off balance. So I use the term parry, pull, and push to indicate this Chinese style. So if you're a strong person, you attack me, I'll parry you first, and then I try to pull you, lose balance, and then I push you, so they fall down. So the Chinese way of doing things. So if you're too aggressive, you mean to deliver a knockout blow on a Chinese person, if he's skilled at this art, he will actually use that against you. He will turn your force against you. So you can see that in the trade war. This is what happened now.
So we have two very different approaches to business, two different leadership styles, two different management styles. Mm-hmm. How can the Chinese and the Western style work together? Vian, have any of your students had any success in blending or combining these two different leadership styles?
We have many successful showcases to show that the Western CEO are intelligent enough to mix with the Western style and the Chinese management style together, and then they can make a better informed judgment.
Vian, I know you'd like to give lots of examples. You mentioned one to me the other day about the ministerial level MOU.
President of Investment House 2 years ago signed an MOU with Chinese minister. This company is one of the biggest investment house with AUM more than 290 billion US dollars. This president has a long recognition of how important is the Chinese relationship. He has been successfully building his connection with Chinese government and Chinese business leaders patiently for over 20 years. Based on mutual cooperation and mutual respect, he skillfully mixed with the Chinese and Western management styles. He is able to embrace the differences and adapt the China way, so has a great results. Another successful experience is a pre-IPO investment. This is a China inbound investment. They are the cornerstone investor of Alibaba pre-IPO. It's obviously good for the investment to come in to buy in a lower price. The relationship, 关系, uncover this investment opportunity. The managing director can open the door and use her basic Mandarin speaking skill to communicate and build a relationship. And now, even though the internal due diligence is handled in a very analytical way, as what Dr. Yan just mentioned, it's still very successful of combination of the Western and Chinese management styles. It's not only a nice word, it's basically is the highest ROI, investment return, 投资回报. I have one more example. It's a private equity managing director. He's empowered with his own first-hand information. This is an asset management company with an AUM over 50 billion US dollars. And their approach is heavily analytical. The CEO has recognized the landscape in China is really different from the Western world. He's building his own judgment and connection through his language learning. Now he can listen his first-hand information in a meeting and relied on much less on the filtered information from the translator. Now the company still heavily relied on Western analytical due diligence process. It's slightly better with the CEO's own judgment with additional information.
Thank you very much, Vian. Today we've learned a lot about China's cultural origins, the 5 different business customs in China, the 4 modes, the 4 strategies for a Westerner to do business in China. And we've just heard your comments, Dr. Yan, and your examples, Vian, about the different management and leadership styles. Thank you very much for your time, both of you. In the next edition of Finance Mandarin China Insights, Dr. Yan, will you share your comments about China's political landscape?
China's political landscape is very different than any other Western political landscape, where politics are in the open, and then there are different parties contesting to be of influence. China is very different. It's run by a big party, a communist party. And the Communist Party is an organization of about 19 million members, so largest in the population of Germany. So it's a huge organization. So you have basically an organization, a massive one, although a very secretive one, of 19 million people. They're very diligent, intelligent. This is an important organization. Now, for some reason, all these years, they have not made their policies and discussion public.
But we do see the results. For example, One Belt, One Road, China opening up. This is the after the internal discussions. This is the end result that comes out.
Right. We often see the end results, but we don't know the deliberation behind the closed doors. This is very different than a Western style democracy, but it's very open. We see it in TV, and different people talk about different things and fighting out in the public.
Behind closed doors. And it's the consensus opinion that comes out.
Yes, you understand China. There's quite a bit of discussions and deliberation of various issues, and they try to work on this consensus thing, and then by the end of it, you see one document that kind of encapsulates everybody's thinking, and to some extent, it's another form of democracy, but we don't call it that way. So.
Understand. And Vian, will you have some advice for Western business leaders who are doing business in China, trying to navigate the politics and the government and the regulators?
Yes, for the China political landscape, we actually have a couple of comprehensive workshops to introduce the overview, the thinking of the party system. Dr. Yan just mentioned about the China Communist Party, the membership, and then we will also cover, like recently for the constitution, the party constitution was just amended, and then who are the three leaders? They actually, the names written down in the party constitution. They are Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, and Xi Jinping. And this is the highlight we have to introduce to all our CEO leaders. If they don't understand the party system, how can they understand the SOE reform? How can they understand the dual system in an organization? Whether you report to the CEO or you report to the party secretaries, it's very amazing. For them, it's something new and foreign. So we bring all this kind of China intelligence together in our China language coaching with China intelligence.
Recently, the different role of the Communist Party of China, the party secretary and the board of directors of a company, there was a different relationship between those. Can you share a little bit about that, Vian?
This one is already written down in the board of directors under the company law in China. All the listed companies, whenever they have a board, and then the party secretary will have the similar level of right as the management director. They're equally important to share the responsibility of overseeing the outcome and the responsibility of a company. Not only the P&L, but the responsibility to the shareholders, to the investors, and to the communities as well.
Yes, it's important to know about the regulators.
So the finance regulators is the most important Chinese government that our senior executive from the financial market have to deal with. So you have to understand 一行两会一局，央行、证监会、银保监会， say 外管局。
Okay, and the government leaders?
You have to understand the political landscape from the central government level and the provincial government level, and distinguish between the party and the administrative governments.
Thank you both for your time today. 谢谢你们宝贵的时间. Really appreciate your sharing your insights with us today. Thank you, Dr. Yan.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Vian.
John. Thank you.